Hey, Nate Ryan here, NBC Sports. Great to be joined by two legends of the Supercross series. Really excited to talk to them and do a story about this for NBCSports.com. Motorsports Talk, James Stewart, Ricky Carmichael, not only Supercross champions and legends, but also a part of the NBC Sports booth that we've had this season as well. And I just want to get started, guys. I mean, first of all, I was listening to James's Bubba's World podcast to kind of prep for this, and I heard Ricky's visit back in December. And I knew you guys had great rapport because I've heard you guys on air, but listening to you guys talk about like the way you challenged each other, especially in the RC's final season, and the way you rode against each other, it was fascinating because it seemed like you guys had never had those conversations before. But at the same time, why wouldn't you have had those conversations before? Because you guys seem to get along so well. So I'll start with you, James. Like, have you guys always kind of had this rapport? And what was it like doing that podcast and kind of talking about all those things for the first time with Ricky?
Well, I think, I've obviously known Ricky for a long time. I mean, since I was probably in diapers from back in Dade City. He used to come over to my motor home and I watched him like growing up. I mean, he was older than me, but he was also like still in my, era where I was watching him in, 80s class when I was getting out, 50s and beginning in 60s. So, we always kind of had a relationship. And then when you go pro, just the competitor nature, we were like friends and we were cordial, but we raced each other. And I think when you have so much on the line, you're on different teams, you just don't have an opportunity to actually have the conversations like we did. And again, like we were so competitive and not in a negative way. I would say our competitiveness was way different than mine's and Chad's and probably even RC's and Chad's. Like it wasn't a hatred. It was just I wanted to win and he wanted to win. So we wouldn't have spoke because like that we always felt like that was an insight for the other guy, not like playing games, but just we had our way about I had my way about going on things. He was in Tallahassee, he had his way about going, and we just raced. And then once he retired, I was still racing. So it's just like these other guys that's racing every weekend. It's hard to find the time to sit down and chat. So when we got a chance to chat, when it was like November or whenever, October, November last year, it was catching up on probably like 30 years worth of like history. And,
Wow.
And it was a good conversation because we've always had like, I wonder what he was thinking back then. I wonder what. And so it was good because I'm hearing it for the first time and I'm like, oh man, if I wish I would have known that. But as far as how we are and why we get along is because we're both, Florida boys. We grew up in the same like basic circumstances. Like we grew up not a lot of money. We kind of grew up in basically the same way, going through Team Green, getting pro, and it was good. So I think now just being fathers and everything, you just enjoy to learn and love, and just having an opportunity to catch him and talk about, I guess the racing side was cool, but also just, life. So, Ricky, I'm sure you could probably speak on that. It was a good conversation for me. It was really big, just on the standpoint, I was like, damn, I love that guy. And just catching up on all those relationships, it was good.
Yeah, it was certainly a conversation that needed to happen. And Nate, you're around a lot of great athletes, and I just feel like a lot of the stuff towards the end of the season, more after I had retired from racing when I had RCH and James was riding for Yoshimura Suzuki. There's so many people in between us, things being said, and shame on me for not reaching out to James. Me being a little bit older, I should have went and said, hey, everything cool. At the end of the day, our roots run deep, and James, he explained it perfectly. I was a little bit older than him. I used to watch his dad race at Dade City. I was around when James was in diapers, and then saw him when he was on 50s. He would come up once in a while to Tallahassee during the summer and ride with us. And, you knew that he was going to be the next guy. And I knew at some stage that I would be racing him in the premier class. And when we started racing together, when he moved up to the premier class, there was always a mutual respect there. I mean, Nate, the roots were so deep, and like James said, we came from the same mold. Our parents had nothing, and we had no other way to do it but to succeed. And that's where the mutual respect came from, and the deep roots that we had with each other. I don't think that there was anything that was going to be able to break that. Were we competitive? Of course we were. Did we want to beat each other? Of course we were. But the competitiveness and the rivalry was nothing compared to, I say, what I had with Chad. I mean, I wanted to beat Chad Reed as bad as anybody did, and I could feel like James was the same way. Did I want to beat James? Of course I did, but there was much more mutual respect because of that history. Then one thing led to the next, and like I said, for everyone's time purposes, some people got in the way, and but as I got invited to come down and talk to James, that conversation and having the opportunity to be on Bubba's World and just air all the grievances, and, hey, I never said this, or did you say this, or I heard you said that. It was nice. I left that place and I had a 4-hour drive home, and I just felt so good. I felt like a ton of weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and now I'm bummed that when I was retired and he was at Yosh and we had RCH, I'm like, damn, it would have been cool to have you race for us, but at the end of the day, the roots are deep. And I think that's why we work so well together.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. I mean, it sounded like a cathartic conversation in a way, but like you guys are both saying, like, those roots run really deep. And I know it goes all the way back to, like, you guys can fill me in on this story, but I guess James's family used to make like scrambled eggs, and Ricky, you'd go to their bus.
Hey, James, tell them it wasn't scrambled eggs when I was coming to your motor.
It was some pancakes, son. It was just pancakes. But yeah, I think it was, to Ricky's point, what we realized when we had a chance to talk, a few months ago, that it was the others, and just like anything, a lot of people, when you, especially on our level, and to what you said it perfectly, Ricky, like, I wanted to win because I had to, like, the way we grew up, like, we had no choice. Like, it was either winning races or you don't eat, like, for a while. So just that mentality just makes you competitive. And, again, just kind of reiterating on the point of Chad Reed, like, if I didn't win the race, all right, I didn't mind Ricky winning, like, whatever. If I didn't win the race and it was Chad Reed, I wish the race was canceled. Like, I didn't want anybody when I hated him. Like, I didn't want anything to do with it. And now me and Chad, like, we play golf together and we're good. We realize that, I think it's the, I would say with me and him, there was things that we did to each other that was like, you can't deny that. Like, you can't say your friend over there said something, where I think with me and Ricky, there was, I can't even go back to be like, yeah, no, you did that to me. It was really what was said. And, just going our different directions, doing different things, being preoccupied with things at the track, life, all these different things. It makes you, it makes it hard to just come up to somebody and have the conversation like what we just did a few months ago. And it just reminded me he's exactly who I thought he was. And that's why we get along.
Yeah. And the thing too, Nate, like people don't realize, when I stopped racing, I did those 3 or 4 years in car racing. So I pretty much was gone from motocross and supercross. I mean, I would dabble once in a while. And that's when, like, James was, he was having a lot more success and he's out there winning, and, other guys are coming up. And so I was kind of gone from that time, and gone from everyone, not just James. I got some other great friends within the industry that I didn't lose touch with, but I wasn't talking on the day-to-day. And like anyone, if it takes effort to reach out. Technology wasn't like it is today back then, but that's not an excuse. However, so then when we got back, like I said, we have our entourages and our people, and that got in the way. But it was a much needed conversation, and now it's so good. And I think what people are seeing in the booth is just a reflection of how we are so like-minded, and how we were cut from the same cloth, and how we had nothing, and a lot of that correlates, and that we have a lot of the same beliefs.
Yeah. And obviously having that conversation on Bubba's World on James's podcast, like I'm sure you guys knew this was going to be great and was going to work, but what were your both your initial reactions to finding out that you're going to be paired on Supercross broadcast in the booth? I guess we start with you, James.
Well, I think just like my racing career, like he was always the pedestal, like that was kind of the top of the mountain. So I knew anything doing with Supercross, like I would be to be alongside of him, I'll be at the top. So I really didn't, just kind of like as I was coming up, like I really didn't think about how good it has been. I think things just kind of happened to me so quickly because when I retired, unlike Ricky, when way he did his sport, like I don't even know what I was doing. I disappeared. So coming back and then starting to work, I worked with Chase for a little bit and kind of starting to dabble back in things. And then doing this podcast, things just started happening to where a year ago, I really wasn't even thinking about doing this side. I really didn't even know what I was doing. I just enjoyed talking and seeing the races. And I felt like I got this competitive kind of void, maybe that was filled a little bit by talking about it. And people seem like they like to listen. And I think the one thing for me is that, and Ricky as well, when you're not racing, like, and especially when you're not based off of like, I got to feed my family off of this, it just makes you see things in a different light. I think it's the same as I watch movies different now that I got kids. I just see it differently. And so when just being retired and being able to we're not too far removed to where the bikes are the same. We know the same guys. I raced Eli Tomac, that you can kind of give people insights, but also give people the things that I wish I was able to say when I was a racer, like, what that guy's doing by doing that. We can kind of speak for the riders. And, where I think, right now, like if we were racing or we had sponsors, that would be kind of hard. So I just enjoy doing it. And it just seems like it kept growing. But then I started doing the broadcast with him on NBC. And just the fact that people love it and it's easy, I enjoy it. It's just like having a conversation with this guy, and we get to watch races. And so to me, it's just growing. And I don't even know where the future is. I just know it's been super beneficial, professional level, but also a personal level, just being around him in the booth and just the opportunity has been great.
Yeah, I second what he's saying, Nate. I think for me, it's so fun to get back to where we were before we raced together and be in a situation where I feel like, we're working together to be the best that we can together. I don't think it's not like when we were racing in a competitive nature. I think we push each other to do the best. We support each other to do the best, whether it's James pitching it to me on a subject or I'm pitching it to James on a subject. Like when I'm in the booth, I'm thinking about, hey, if I see something that I know he can elaborate on, I want to get it to him because I want our viewers to realize that and listen to what he has to say because he has insight like a lot of people don't. And he does a great job sharing that. And outside of that, we got to have dinner Friday night before Nashville, and it's times like those what I have really learned from some of my friends that I work with at NBC before James has joined us is those are the special moments, those times kind of away from everything that you build that bond and you get to enjoy life and you realize just how much you have in common. And you walk away from the weekend saying, man, that was an epic race. That was so much fun in the booth with you. But, oh, yeah, what we did away from work was also special, too. And those are the moments that I've learned since I've gotten older that you can never get back. But those are the moments that are really special at the end of the day when we don't have this anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've picked up on that too, Ricky. I noticed it in Nashville when I was in the booth watching you guys and in the production meetings as well. Like you guys seem to go out of your way to really make sure you're helping each other and really picking each other up. Like James is like, hey, did you see that fall, Ricky, or what happened right before it? And Ricky, I know you're teeing up James sometimes in the broadcast on stuff.
Yeah.
I know this is kind of weird to ask, but like you're such competitive individuals. You both want to be the best broadcasters in the world, the Supercross broadcasters you can possibly be. But at the same time, there's like that element of collaboration in this environment that's probably makes it a little bit different, right? Like you're competitive, you want to be the best you can be, but you want to help the other guy. It's like you get to kind of be like a team player. It's almost like it's a team sport versus individual sport in some ways.
100%, right, James? It's like I learned this from Lee and even Todd, is like when you have a good quarterback, it's all for the team, right? And they don't overstep. They're there to say, hey, would this make it better if I did this for you? And it's the same thing. Like, that's my approach with James, is like, hey, how can I make him better? Like, just for instance, one thing that sticks out to me with James is, I mean, he gives great explanation. It's like, but he's big on timing. So I try to say, hey, this hits like, you got like 20 seconds, and then boom, he adapts, and like, it's for the greater of the good. It's not, I'm not out to beat him, and I don't think he's out to beat me. It's for the broadcast and our viewers, because like James said, listen, we're not going to retire off this. I think it's a true passion that we love to share our insight.
Yeah. No, I concur that. And, I feel like with this, like when we raced each other, it was about winning a race. Like, to me, like the victory of the race is like when we're done, we have fun, but people are like, that was a great show.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's how the victory is. Like, the more, like, he helps me, and he's been a huge help, probably more than he even knows. Like, I am big on timing, just so I know, I like to know how much I can talk, because sometimes I talk a lot on there. I go from a kid that didn't talk at all to a kid that just never shuts up. And, so for me, he's been helping me a lot on that. And I would say, to your point, Ricky, about the dinner, going out, the magical puffs that we had that night, and it's the food, whatever, the mac and cheese, whatever that stuff was, it was so good.
Gnocchi, I said little puffs of heaven.
Little puffs in heaven. I still I was telling somebody about that the other day. But that, from having that dinner, it's not work, it's away from work, but it helps us in that field, because I know when I showed up the next day, it was like, what up, man? Like, man, I'm still full off that food. And then the show just continues, and it's like we're having a conversation. So if Ricky's killing it, then he makes me step up, and I'm better, and vice versa. And overall, like, for us to win, if this is our race, the only way for us to win is to both of us bring and get something out of each other that I think, like, only each other can do. And it's the same thing as what we race. So I would just say it is, it's definitely not an individual on this. I know the show is way better, with him in there, and he's elevating his game, and he's making me elevate mine. And then you have Lee and Todd and even Daniel, the whole crew. I mean, it is a team effort. And everybody just seems like they step up when they see one guy's firing, the other guy fires, and then, the people that win, it's you, Nate. Like, you're watching the racing, like, dang, that was good. And the fans, and my grandmother, she was like, that was good, I want to watch it. And so that's our victory right there.
Even my mom, my mom was like, and James knows my mom, and within the industries, like, everyone knows how hardcore my mom is, right? But she's like, man, you guys are so good together. It was so good listening to you guys. And when we can capture those people, like James was saying, like with his grandma, like, when we can capture those people and they're enjoying it, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could see that, like, how collaborative is not just you guys on air, but the production meetings. I mean, clearly you guys have a great team that works really seamlessly. Before I move on, though, am I allowed to say where the dinner was in Nashville? Where this magical restaurant was where this dinner took place?
Yeah, we went to the Palm, and
the Palm. Okay.
Yeah, we went to the Palm. It was great. Mine was good. James got beef jerky. I don't know what they were doing with that, James.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, for that steak to be right, it needed to be like rare. Then it would have been that thing. Yeah, I thought it was like a piece of dark bread or something. It was terrible. But the magical puffs of heaven, that made up for it.
As long as the gnocchi and the company were good.
The gnocchi, I got to write that down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Ricky, you mentioned it, that like you guys do have like that like-mindedness about things. I think that comes out well. But I thought when Steve Letarte worked with you guys in Nashville, something he said when he came on my NASCAR NBC podcast a few days later, he said what he liked about the way you guys worked is that he could tell you have different styles on the mic, the way you have different styles on the track. Obviously, you're both great riders, but the way you achieved your success, you did it in different ways. And Stevie thought like it was true on the mic as well, that you guys kind of approach broadcasting each differently, but you complement each other really well. Do you guys notice that? I know I'm asking you to sort of analyze yourselves here, but
No,
do you see that?
yeah, that's a great view that Steve had, and you just made me think of something because you're right. Steve is right. We get to the finish line at the same time, and we get out what we want to get out, but we have two separate ways of getting there. And we race the same way too. You know, like at the end of the day, he was going to do certain things that was going to help him win, and I was going to do certain things that would help me win. There wasn't a right way, there wasn't a wrong way, and I feel like that's why we're so complementary with each other, and we're compatible in the booth, because I feel like he knows my style and I know his style, and I feel like that's what the viewers are able to see, and that's why it works. And at the end of the day, where the rubber meets the road, in my opinion, is that, listen, we throw our egos out the door. And in fact, James doesn't have an ego. I try my hardest not to have an ego. We know what we have. We're thankful from where we came from. And I feel like that's what comes across on the broadcast. And it's just so fun to work with him in a non-competitive environment, because our whole lifetime, it's always been about competing against each other, not because we don't like each other, but to finally enjoy time like this, and we both can raise our levels, is awesome to me.
Yeah, we're winning too. We're winning. I agree, and yeah, I think I like that analogy, and I've thought about this, and I think again that's why it makes it easier, because we're not saying the same thing. But I think as fans we can talk about what we're seeing. We're seeing the same thing, but we could talk it in two different ways that everybody kind of understands. And I think that's why the broadcast has been good, because maybe somebody doesn't understand the way I say it, but they do with Ricky, and vice versa. So people are really being able to get, that insight and knowledge, and watch it and actually learn something. And they're almost like listening to two different language or two different ways to say something. And my grandma gets it, his mother gets it, but the hardcore motocross fan gets it. If somebody doesn't like, I kind of say nicknames a lot. There's just two different styles. And, at the end of the day, I think that just makes a broadcast more complete, and it gets the message across in a multitude of different ways, but make sure everybody can listen. So it's been great.
It's been fun for me, Nate and James. I haven't even told you this, is that I love when we're in the broadcast booth and James is explaining how or why the racer did something, when I'm anticipating what I think he is going to say, or how he would have done something, and it wasn't what I was anticipating. So I've learned a few things about how James would approach certain situations, whether it be a line on a track or race strategy or whatever. So there's been a couple times where he's said a few things. I'm like, wow, I wasn't really expecting for you to say that, not that it was good or bad. I'm just like, wow, I was thinking it would be the other way. So that's been fun for me to kind of learn what James's approach is.
That's cool. That's cool.
That's cool.
Ricky, obviously you've got years and years of experience in the booth. James, you're like you said, like a year ago, you weren't even sure if this is what you wanted to do. You're relatively new to it. Like, what's been the toughest part of the adjustment? I know you talked about timing. Is it that, like, you're a natural, I always have been in interviews on camera, but is there anything about like doing it with a national audience on live TV that's difficult for you?
Honestly, I think if it wasn't for Ricky's help, it would have been difficult. Just because, I think I've done 6 of them now, and up until Atlanta was the first time I did with the same team twice, or was in New York or something. So it's been a change, and a 3-man booth is different. It is quite a bit different. And so just kind of getting that rapport with Ricky every week, and even though, like I say, I haven't done with the same team, I guess when you have Todd and Lee, I guess they're kind of leading the show, and me and Ricky, like they have to react off and kind of feed us, so when you're not doing it with those guys, they're kind of leading the show, and then we're kind of telling you like what the story's about. So if it wasn't for RC, and I really think if it wasn't for that interview that we had 6 months ago, it would have been a lot more difficult. But just having him, and I'm a timing guy, and I think the fact that it hasn't been difficult, it's been more fun. And I think the difficult part is just trying to get better and trying to change the language and trying to, like, I study is more than I have even in the past. Not even just racing, but listening to him, listening to David Bailey, listening to Art Etman. I enjoy doing that. So it's been a challenge and fun at the same time, to just get better. And I see him getting better. It just seems like everything is, when you're having fun at something and you enjoy who you're working with, you just get better naturally. And it's been great.
That's cool. So after this, Supercross wraps up, and then you're going to be full-time with Jason Wygant. Is that right, James, for motocross?
Yeah. I'll be doing, I think, most of the races, and then RC will be in there, doing the NBC and some other ones.
Hi folks, Lee Diffie from NBC Sports here. If you truly enjoyed what you just watched, you can get more news, interviews, and highlights by subscribing to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube page. You can get it all, so go for it.